Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back here with another video, and today this is the I guess like the fourth episode of the series where I basically teach you guys how to build a full stack application using React, Node, and MySQL. So in the last video, it was actually a pretty short video because I was like lacking time to record the rest. However, this video is going to be a little bit longer to satisfy the fact that the last video was a bit shorter. In this video, we're going to go over, first of all, how to structure our application so that we have different routes in our client side. And then I'm going to show you guys how to use a very famous library called Formic to build very easily made forms, right? It'll be very automated. We'll be able to display errors, validate whatever we're writing on our forms. And then we're going to use that form to be able to upload to our database. So it's going to be a very complete tutorial, and I really hope you guys will enjoy it. But before we actually get into the video, if you guys could leave a like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. We're growing very fast and I couldn't be more grateful. However, if you guys could leave a like, it will push my videos to more people, and I would be really happy if you guys did so. So now let's get into the tutorial. Okay guys, so you can see that this is what we left off, right? We have here our main page, just a common index URL over here, and it queries all of our data from our database. And I showed you guys the CSS that I used to create this. It's just a bunch of cards. We have the title for the post, the kind of like the post in itself over here, and the username of the user who decided to post this, right? So we only have 4 examples. However, there's an issue. You can see that all of this code is written inside of the app.js, and I want to fix that because we're going to have different routes in our application. And what do I mean by routes is we're going to be using one of the most famous libraries that we have here in React called React Router DOM, and it will allow us to have different URLs, different routes into our website. So to install this, I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to say cd client because I want to be inside of the client folder because we divided our project into a client and a server folder. And then I want to run the command npm install react router DOM like this, and it's gonna start installing the package. But while it's doing that, what we can do is we can come over here to our src and we can create a folder called pages, and this folder over here will be just a folder containing all the different pages, all the different routes that we're going to have in our application, and it's just a good way of organizing our project. So inside of here, the first page we're going to create is the home page, right? So the page that opens when you enter in the website. So let's say home.js, for example, and I'm using an extension which I want to show you guys. It's this extension over here, ES7 React Redux GraphQL React Native. It's just a snippet extension that allows you to run RFCE, and when you press enter, it will automatically create the React functional component for you. So if you don't have that, you can just write this out. But over here, we can write the code that is going to go towards creating the home.js route. And the code that we're going to use here is exactly the same code that we wrote over here. We can just copy all of this and put it inside of this over here. So let's just put it over here. And this can also be copied, and we're going to put this inside of the home.js component, so over here at the top. And let's also copy the xuse and the use effect and use state imports, and let's just put them over here. Now we can actually come over here to our app.js and just delete all of this. So let's delete this, and let's delete this over here as well. So why did we do this? Well, now we can, in the app.js, the only thing we're going to have here is kind of like the structure of our routes, just the definition of our routes. And to do that, we're going to come here at the top, and we want to import some stuff from React Router DOM. So I'm going to say import from React Router DOM, and we're going to come over here, and I want to import, first of all, browser router as router. And we do this because router, we're just grabbing this, which is something that exists in React Router DOM, and calling it router because it's shorter, and I don't want to keep writing browser router because it's a long word. But then we also want to import route, then switch, and I guess for now this is it. So in React Router DOM, we can, if we want to set up our routes, all we have to do is, I'm going to delete this over here, and we just need to wrap everything around with a router like this. Actually, I'll just do this inside of the div containing the app, right? And I'll just come over here and say router like this, And I'm gonna save this, and inside of here we're gonna put a switch tag like this, and just wrap all of the routes we want to have around with this. So I'm gonna come over here and say route, and to create a route, all we have to do is we just have to pass a path to the route. So for example, if we want to create the home page, we can come over here and say that we want this path to be the slash, which basically means this is going to be the route for the main entry point of your website. So when you enter in the URL, this is what is going to show up. Then you're going to pass that this has to be exact so that it never renders more than one route at the same time. And then finally, you got to pass a component inside of here. That will be the component that you want to render if someone tries to go to this route. So for example, we're going to import this home component over here at the top like this. Import home from ./pages/home, and then all we have to do now is we just have to pass home over here. And what this means is if we come here to our page, you can see that it is working, it is showing everything. But if we try to go to the, I don't know, slash login, it doesn't exist, but if you try to go to that thing, it won't show, because we said that only the entry point of the application we want to render the home component, and it is working perfectly. You can see everything is showing up beautifully, which means we correctly created this route. Now, what is the switch component? Basically, all it does is it tells our code to try to render the first component that satisfies the route that we put. If it doesn't, it just redirects to itself. That's just kind of something that you have to do to make it work. And if we want to create other routes, we can just copy this and just add how many routes we want, right? I actually copied it incorrectly, but I'll just do it like this. And what is another route that we want to create? Well, let's think about this. I just have this main page over here where I can click on stuff. I can click on a post, but currently we're not going anywhere if we click on it, and that's something we're going to be doing later. However, I want to be able to add more posts. I want to be able to create a post to this website if I want to, right? So how can we do that? For now, I'll just add a button here at the top where when you click on this button, you'll be able to, it will bring you to another web page, which you'll be able to like there's going to be a form and you will be able to create your post. So for now, let's just create a link that is going, that when you click on it, it's going to bring you to that other web page. And to create a link, you can use a link tag like this that already comes with React Router DOM, and I'm actually going to put it right over here. So link, and we can actually like this, and I'll just say I want to link to create a post, and then you can pass the route that you want to go by writing to over here, and then you just pass whatever route you want to go to. So what route do we want to create? Well, we want to create a route where you create a post. So let's just call it I don't know, create that post, something like this. So basically all we have to do is come over here and say that when we click on this, we want to go to the create post route. And if we take a look at our code, you can see that a link appears here at the top, and when I click on it, it brings us to the create post tag. It doesn't exist, and that's why it's not showing anything. It's continuing on the same page. But when we create it right now, which is what we're gonna do right now, it's gonna link us to the other web page. So let's create the create post component, and let's actually just call it I don't know, post. No, actually I'll call it create post, because we're gonna create something called post. So I'll just call it createPost.js, and again I'll use the snippet to create our component. And over here, let's write the code that is going to work for our that is going to contain our form, right? But for now, let's just test. I'll just write here create post and see if the link is working. So if I save this and I import this on the app.js here at the top, and just link this over here, so create post from the create post file, and I just pass create post over here, and I just come to our web page. You'll see that it shows create post, right? And the link for create post currently is existing on every single route that we go to, because we put it on top of the routes, so it's always gonna show it. If we want to, we can create also another link, which again, it doesn't really matter, because I'm going to change this later to look better, but for now we can do something like this. Go homepage, and just change this route to this empty slash, and now we have two links. So if I click on the home page, we go to the home page. If I click on the create post, it goes to the create post page, right? So this is just something that we had to do to navigate in our website. So now let's create the form that is going to allow us to create our posts. And to do so, we're going to be using a library called Formic, which is a very, very famous library. I love this library. I have videos where I teach you guys how to use this library. The reason why I like this library is because it makes it a lot easier for you to validate your data, to be able to, for example, if you want to submit a form, you want to tell the user that if they forgot a field, right? So it does that automatically for you. It gives those errors automatically for you, which is amazing. And I wanted to integrate that into this tutorial series because I think it will be great valuable, like a great value for you guys to understand. So all we have to do is we need to come over here, and for now let's install Formic like this. And it's gonna start installing our package, but while it's doing that, let's actually start implementing the package in our create post component. So I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna close the other components. So now that we're here, let's actually start creating our form by coming here at the top and importing some stuff from Formic. So what exactly do we want to import? Well, I'm gonna say import from Formic, and then I'm gonna import first of all Formic like this, then a component called form, then a component called field, then I guess we're gonna import some error messages. So what happens is Formic allows you to create forms without using the traditional like traditional HTML tags. They already create components directly for you, and it is great because not only you can style it if you want to, but also like it automatically handles all the hard part from form validation. So we're gonna be using this in order to create our form. So over here, let's just delete this over here. Actually, no, let's just create this. I give it a class name of like create. Actually, I'll just call it like this: create post container. It's just like the div for the whole like page. So actually, I'll call this create post page, and we'll again do this like work with the CSS outside the video, and I'll just show the CSS for you guys because that's not the focus of the series. However, inside of here, let's start by creating our form. So in order to create our form, let's just say Formic over here, and then we can just close it like this and just save it so that it will automatically organize everything. Then inside of here, we will have to pass a few values. We'll need to pass an initial values, which we won't for now because we don't have it. Then we'll need to pass an onSubmit, which is just a function that like it will be called when you submit the form. And then finally a validation schema, which is very important later on, and I'll explain to you guys when we get there. But these are the three things we need to pass over here. We're just gonna keep them empty for now because we still don't have them. So let's actually start by creating our form. So to create my form, I'll just use the form component like this and save it again. And inside of here, we can basically just add a bunch of fields. And a field is just like an input that will be used in the form. So for example, our form, as you might recall, in our database, we are taking a few how can I say, a few columns, right? For example, we want the title for the post text, which is like the whatever you want to post. For example, in Twitter, it is the tweet, and then your username, right? So those are three fields that we need to add to our form that the user needs to input so that you can submit and create a post. So let's just copy this and actually create three different fields. But for each field, we need to pass some sort of information. For example, we're going to pass an ID for the field so that we can access it on our CSS later. So let's just call this like input create post. So like the input for creating a post. Then let's come over here and we need to pass a name inside of here. And why this name is actually extremely important. It basically should be the same as the field in your database or the data that you're using. For example, if this is the field that or the input that is going to be used to hold the title for the post, we should call this exactly how it is in the database, which, if you guys recall, it is title. And finally, over here, we need to pass some sort of placeholder like this, which basically is just whatever, like in an input, you can have a placeholder. It's just a text that describes what you should write here. So I'm going to write something like example John. just like you'll see what this means. And now we can come here to our page, and yeah, I shouldn't have done this, but we'll put this later. I'll just delete this for now, so that we can see our form. So if I save this and refresh my page, you'll see that we have a beautiful input over here with the placeholder saying example John. And actually, I just realized this isn't the input for the name, so I don't know why I gave the I wrote example John. I'll say like example title, just whatever. And then we need to also add a label for this. So a label is just like a description to what we're trying to write, and we can come over here and say something like title, like this. And when we save this, you'll see that this should appear either to the right, like either to the side or on top of the input. We can deal with that later, and again, I'll go over the CSS after the end of the video. But this is just a label that will contain whatever your input is. So let's just copy and paste this 3 times, and let's change the value so that this is the post, this is the username, and over here, let's just change the name to post text. And I'm writing it like this because this is how we call the column in the database, and this should be username, like this. And then let's just change this to post, and this to something like John123. And if we come over here, you'll see we have 3 different inputs, 3 different labels, and we're able to use them, right? Which is great. Finally, what we need is a button that, when clicked, will be able to submit the form. So to do that, you just need to come over here, create a button. Let's just say something like create post, and then on our button we're going to be able to give it some sort of type, and the type for this button is submit, and this will automatically tell our Formic component over here that the form has been submitted. Now you can see that our form is over here all done, at least the UI, the skeleton of it. However, I'm going to take a break right now to do the CSS, and I'll be back in a second and show you guys. If you want to copy the CSS, the link is in the description for the code, and just so that we don't like continue working on an ugly web page. So I'll be back in a second. Okay guys, so I'm back here, and you can see that in my opinion it looks a lot better, but I tried to work around with the CSS to see if it looks better, and this is what I came up with. But this is basically going to be our form, where we're going to be able to fill in this inputs, click on the create post, and it should add this stuff to our database. If you want to check out the code for the CSS, it's over here on the app.css. I'm not going to go over the code as I mentioned before, however the link is in the description. Just as a heads up, I added a class name to the form just so that this CSS works, and for now during the tutorial I set all my inputs to have autocomplete off, just so that you guys don't see my like usernames, my Gmails, my passwords that are suggested when I write on an input. However, this is completely unnecessary. If you guys don't want to put autocomplete off on any of your inputs, that's fine. So let's actually start by writing the code to validate our form now that it looks semi-okay. So if you recall, we had certain values that we passed here in our Formic component that are necessary, right? And we had to remove them because we still didn't have those things, and we're now actually going to start by creating them. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create something called the initial values, which is basically what are going to be the initial values for each of our inputs, which is kind of like dumb in my opinion. However, this is necessary for Formic. All you have to do is just create a variable called initial values like this, and just make it into an object, and inside of here you create an object containing a title, that obviously the title initially is an empty string, then the post text like this, which again is an empty string, and finally the username, which again is an empty string. So this is what we need to pass as initial values. So here in our Formic we can just pass initial values and pass this object that we just created. And now that we have that done, we have to pass some sort of function that is going to run on submit. So over here we can say on submit, and for now let's just create a function over here in our create post component called on submit, like this, on submit, that for now will do absolutely nothing. Actually we can get the data from the form. Formic automatically passes the data as an argument to this function, so we can say data, and when we submit the form we can just look at the data that we submitted by saying console log.data. And then we can come here on the onSubmit and just pass this function. If you're used to creating forms by creating multiple states, this is completely unnecessary on Formic. It will handle everything for you, so you don't even need to create any states to hold the values of the inputs. Now finally, if you guys recall, there's something called the validation schema, and this I won't put for now because I'm going to introduce another library that we're going to be using that always comes together with Formic or any other formed validation library, which is called Yup. So Yup is a library that allows you to validate information. So if you've ever, for example, entered in a website and saw a form that required that you put a password between 3 and 10 characters, or that your password has like only, I don't know, a number, an uppercase letter, that kind of stuff, right? That's called form validation. And Yup is a library used in the industry, which is very famous, and it allows you to do that kind of stuff very, very easily. So to do that, we need to install Yup by saying npm install Yup. And you see that I'm doing this inside of the client folder, right? So that you guys don't accidentally do it inside of the server folder. And while it is actually installing, let's start by implementing the Yup functionality into our project. So all we have to do is, over here at the top, we can just come over here and say import. I'll just say import all as Yup from Yup, like this. And now we imported every single thing from Yup, from the library, as a variable called Yup. And over here right at the top, let's create something like a validation schema, like this. Let's call it validation schema. And it's going to be just an object that contains each one of the fields that we need in our form, but we're gonna, in those fields, we're gonna specify using Yup what exactly we need to validate, right? And you guys might find that weird in the beginning, but you'll see it is pretty intuitive. So to do that, you just need to come over here and say Yup.object. So we're saying that this is an object, and we need to specify some sort of shape. So the shape will be basically composed of a title, like this, then a post text, like this, and then a username, right, like this. And inside of, like, right over here, for each of the fields, we just need to write the Yup logic that will define each of the fields. And what do I mean by that? For example, we require that the title that you input in the form is a string. So we can say yup.string, and it will automatically validate if what you're putting is not a number, or I don't know what else. It's validating if it is a string. And we can say, for example, as well, that we want it to be required, because there might be some inputs that are optional. So in this case, we want the title to be required. And for now, this can be just it. We don't need to write anything else. Post text is also a string, and it's also required, and username as well, right? We can also add some stuff for username. For example, if we wanted to say that the username can't be more than less than 3 letters or 3 characters, right? We can say min over here and pass 3, and we can also say, like, okay, your username can be 64 characters long, right? I know that we did this in the database. However, we still need to validate it on the form because it just adds another layer to the security, right? So we can say over here max, and say, for example, we want it to be the maximum amount of characters in your username needs to be 15 characters, like characters long, right? And this is basically it. This is the validation that we're running. It will check for each of the inputs that we submitted in the form, and it will just check to see if it satisfies whatever we put over here. If we want, we can specify the error messages that will be appearing if someone doesn't correctly input like something validated by this form. But you guys will see it later, because right now we're going to pass this into our Formic form, like this, validation schema, and we'll just pass the validation schema object that we created. And we're going to start implementing into our form the error messages component, because if you recall, we imported this thing called error message from Formic, which will allow us to basically create this very easily and just display the errors as you write the form. So here, all you have to do to display the error is basically you just need to come here to your input. So for example, I want to display the errors in between the label and the field. So I just come here and say error message, like this. And we just need to pass what is the name for the input that we want to correspond this error message to, if that makes any sense, right? So for example, this error message will be the error message for the title input. So we can say title over here. And that's basically it. We can also like define what component we want it to be, and when it says component, it's basically what HTML element we want to create this error message from. I like to create it from a span, but you can put a div, you can put an h1 tag, you can put a like a, I don't know, a label, whatever you want. I'll just call it span, and I'll just copy this and do it for each one of them. So this is post text, and this over here should be username, like this. And if we save this, let's take a look at our code over here. Let's refresh our page to see if everything has been updated. If we start writing on this, I'll just write an example title, like example title. Then let's write a post, whatever for now. And the username, let's start writing. You'll see that immediately when I write, it will display an error message because it will be less than 3 characters long, I think. No, it only happens after submitting, I guess. So I'm just putting a random username, and when I click create post, you'll see that it worked. It should have actually console logged our message or our data. You can see it appears over your object, and yeah, it worked. We console logged an object containing the post text, the title, and the username. And this is being done because over here on the onSubmit function that we created, we just console logged the data. However, let's try console logging without a username. Let's see what happens. You see immediately it says username is a required field, and now after you submit it, it's when it's actually showing the errors, right? And for example, if we start writing now, you'll see that it shows username must be at least 3 characters, but if I write more than 3 characters, it will work. If I make a username larger than 15 characters, it will say username must be at most 15 characters. Same thing goes with all the other inputs, and you can specify the error messages if you want. For example, if I want to come over here, and instead of saying title is a required field, I can put something, for example, for the title, a message right over here saying you must input a title, like this. And you'll see that obviously it will show you must input a title. If I try again, I'll just refresh. You'll see you must input a title. I don't care that much about this for now, but if you guys want to play around with this, feel free to do so. For me, this looks great. Only thing I want to change right now, just so, because it annoys me a bit, is I just want to come over here and inside of the CSS, and I know that I said that I wouldn't work with CSS, but it's just something that would annoy me. I'm just going to grab the span, which is the error messages, and change the colors inside of it to red, because I prefer the error messages to be red. So you can see over here now every error message is red, and it just looks a little bit better. But now we have all of our form validation and all of our form done. So what do we do now? How do we actually submit that and insert that into our database? Well, if you recall, in our server over here, in our routes, we have a post route, which there's a post request, which basically just takes as the body an object containing the title, the post text, and the username, and it just calls Sequelize to create and insert that into our MySQL database. So we already created this post request, and currently I'm running my server, which, by the way, you need to be running your React on a terminal and your server on another terminal. I'm currently running both of them. I'm just gonna close this terminal over here, but you can see I'm running both of the servers, right? So how exactly do we call this? Well, in the previous episode, I showed you guys how to make an API request to our own API, right? And you can see that in the home, we used Axios to make a GET request. So now we're going to do the same thing, but with the post request. So we're going to import Axios on our create post over here at the top. And then we're going to come to our home.js, and we're just going to copy this over here. And it's just the template for the GET request. And where exactly do we want to make this post request? Well, let's think about this. This is an onSubmit function. We just want to call the request when you submit the form. So instead of console logging the data, we can just make the request instead of here. And if you recall, I said that in the post request, we take an object containing the title, the post text, and the username as an object, as the body, right? And this is exactly what data is. If you recall, if you remember, we console log data, and it was exactly that. So all we have to do is we have to say axios.post, and it should be the same over here, the same URL, because on our server, we just, the only difference is the same endpoint, but the only difference is that this is a post request, and that's totally doable. You don't need to create different routes. if there are different requests. But over here, we're just saying access.post. We put the endpoint over here, and then we need to pass the object over here. So this is where you pass the body, and the body will just be the data. And this is how we're actually submitting it. And then, since this returns a promise, it's going to run the request, finalize the request, and it's going to grab the response. The response for this, it doesn't really matter. We just want to insert this into the database. But if we want to see if it worked, we can console log a message saying it worked. Something like this, right? And we can actually check to see if this is working, right? So for example, I'll go to the home page. You'll see that this are all the posts that we have, and the last one is called example 4, right? You can see this is what we created last time, but right now let's go to a create a post, and let's create an actual post, right? I'm gonna write this, I don't know, let me give an example. I'll just write Harry Potter, and over here I'll just write Harry Potter is a good movie. Actually, it's not a movie, but it's a good movie. I love it. It is amazing. Just whatever, right? And my username will be PedroTech. So let's do this. Now, all of this satisfies the request. So let's try to create the post. And let's open our console log as well to see if it's going to console log the message saying it worked. So let's just come over here and let's just click on the create post button. We have no idea what happened, but let's see what happened. It said it worked, and let's hope it worked. So let's go to the home page and scroll down. You'll see that now, right at the bottom, it has another post called Harry Potter with exactly what we said, and PedroTech as the username. This is now in our database. This is stored in our MySQL database, and we were able to make the post request directly from our React application. But now let's try to submit this form. I'll write like a bunch of stuff, but let's not write a username. You'll see that it won't let us submit anything. You'll see it won't say it worked because it never reached. This was from before, but it won't say it worked no matter how many times I click on it, because it doesn't go to the unsubmit function because it's not working. It doesn't have a valid username. And you'll see that in our homepage, nothing was inserted into our database, meaning that we correctly made a form validation, right? So that's basically it for this video. I hope this video, I don't know how long was this video, but I hope it compensates for the last video, which was a bit short. The next videos, we're going to do a lot more. We're going to be dealing with how to click on each of these posts and go to their individual posts. We're also going to maybe work with the comment section, maybe add the like functionality. And I saw that some of you guys want to add like valid authentication and authorization into the project. Maybe I'll do that right at the end of the series. However, I'm really enjoying the series right now, and you guys are enjoying it as well. So I'm really happy at how it's going. So that's basically it. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, because I would really appreciate it. I'm currently at university, and I'm going to my finals week. So the next 2 weeks, I'm actually going to be studying a lot. But don't worry, I'm gonna post 3 times a week, which is my schedule, and this is definitely one of the priorities. Stay tuned for the next episodes. I'm planning to finish the series hopefully in the next week. So yeah, that's basically it. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I see you guys next time.